Guys, wait till you try today's recipe. It is a delicious and simple spiced snacking cake. And I know that you guys all love snacking cakes. It is a huge trend. I'm just kidding. Let's make it because it's really, really easy to put together. You'll need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. And then 1 1/2 cups of granulated sugar, and they get mixed right together. So all the dry ingredients are going in here. This is a 1/2 cup measure, so I need 3. A tablespoon plus a 1/2 teaspoon. It's these funny measuring spoons that are hard to, I think they're more decorative than anything. And a 1/2 teaspoon. And then 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, but I'm using Morton's salt, which is saltier than Diamond Crystal, so I'm only using 1/2 teaspoon. 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom, and whisk that together until really nicely combined. This is kind of important because when you're using leavener and you're not mixing it in with like creaming, which is my new favorite way to mix leavener into baked goods, since this is a sort of like a dump and stir quick bread type cake, you want to make sure that you're really fully incorporating your leavener into the flour mixture so there are no pockets of air, because what happens when the leavener is activated in the oven, it sort of like forms all of these pockets of air, and if it's not evenly distributed, you end up with little holes in your cake. So I think that's fully combined. So now you do your wet ingredients. It's a whole egg and then 1 egg yolk. So save the egg white for something else. You could just add it to any eggs that you're making, scrambled eggs, whatever. Okay, so that goes like that. Okay. 3/4 cup of sour cream. 3 tablespoons of milk. This is more than 3 tablespoons. I'm going to use some of the milk for a glaze later, so measure 3/4. So 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of oils, basically 1/3 cup, and 2 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla. Just gonna go. These, can't get over it. And this is a tablespoon, so I'm gonna not fill it completely. All right. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and I have, well, I'll tell you, never mind, you can't know right now. It's a secret. Just kidding. So then whisk dry and wet together. It's a 9 by 13 pan that has been brushed with oil because we're using oil in this recipe instead of butter, and lined with parchment. There, fine. Was that a good secret? Are you so happy now? Into the dry, go the wet. These kinds of recipes are great because I know you're supposed to whisk it, but I prefer to do this because I feel like when I whisk wet ingredients into a good amount of dry, then all of it clumps inside of the whisk, and that drives me nuts. And then you have to bang on it, and then the batter flies everywhere. So now instead, I have flour flying everywhere. Okay, so this makes a really thick batter, as you can see, but it's gonna puff up in the oven, so don't worry. Baking pan, scrape your batter into the pan. Ooh, uh-oh, whoa. Did you see that? I did not stir properly. There is, oh, that's horrible. Dry flour at the bottom. Get all the way to the bottom of the pan. Bad technique, bad. Not about bad, but lazy, I guess. Then you can scrape your batter into the pan. Spread evenly into the pan. Okay, this is the time for your little offset spatula because it makes it so much easier to spread things into corners and smooth things out evenly. And since this is such a thick batter, you kind of want to do that. You just want to make sure that it's even though once it goes into the oven and the batter heats up, it's going to sort of self-level anyway, but you still want to do this. I always think it's funny that things are called snacking cakes. I mean, can't you just snack on any cake? I guess that just means that they're like slightly less sweet. They're single layer cakes. They're super easy to put together, but still, I always laugh when I say snacking cake. Okay, 350 degrees, 35 to 40 minutes until the top should spring back when you touch it. So you're gonna wanna glaze this snacking cake because that's what makes it extra, extra delicious. I am making a confectioner's sugar and milk and lemon and vanilla glaze, so it's got a lot of complexity, which is really nice. Start with 3/4 of a cup of confectioner's sugar. I'm gonna set this aside for 1 sec. And zest a lemon. This has been washed and like sort of remove any kind of, well, if there's any wax on it, it's probably better. I would say if you got organic, if you could, just because you're eating the zest and you know, you're eating it. So get it as clean as possible. And then this glaze actually calls for between 1.5 teaspoons and a tablespoon, depending on how zesty you like it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use the zest of the whole lemon, which will probably be about 1.5 teaspoons, maybe a little more. I'm gonna estimate that that's about 1.5 teaspoons. That can go directly into your confectioner's sugar. And then this also gets vanilla bean. So vanilla beans are pretty expensive these days. If you can't get vanilla bean, you could certainly use vanilla extract. And I've actually really been loving vanilla paste, which is made from ground up vanilla beans. It's slightly less expensive than a whole vanilla bean, and it really has great vanilla flavor. It's been a real favorite these days. So you can get that too. So this is flecked with vanilla seeds and lemon. Save your pod, put it in some sugar. You want to get the most out of your vanilla bean if you're going to spend the money on it. So put it in some sugar, and you can use that sugar for baking if you want to just add like a little hint of vanilla. It's really nice. Lemon juice. Wow, I have vanilla seeds all over my fingers. I'll smell good later, which is nice. It gets 1.5 tablespoons of milk, which is the remaining milk from the full amount, and then about 1 tablespoon or more of the lemon juice. So I'm gonna measure because I don't want to overdo it. I don't want my glaze to be I did it. That was scary. I thought I was gonna spill it. Okay. You want the glaze to be of pouring consistency so that it'll go over the entire cake, but cover it in a really nice thin glaze that will set but won't be too clumpy and won't be overwhelming. I think this is probably good. I always say it should have the texture of like a thick honey. Okay, so the cake has been cooling. I took it out of the oven, put it on a rack to cool. I have it set over a baking sheet just in case some of the glaze drips over the side, which of course it's going to because that's what happens with glaze. So I like to pour straight down the center. The vanilla bean did give it a little bit of a grayish tint, but because this glaze is gonna set kind of clear, that will go away. Make sure you get all the way to the edges. You want every single bit of the cake to have a little bit of this glaze on it. And it might seem like, oh, that's not, that much, but glaze has a really intense flavor and you don't want it to overwhelm the cake. And it's not the same as a frosting. So just remember that when you're like, wait, Sarah, this doesn't seem like enough. It is enough. You're gonna wanna let this set before you cut it. Probably takes about 30 minutes for the glaze to set, and then you can dig right in. I am in love with this spice snacking cake, and I think you guys will be too. Give it a try. If you like recipes like this and you want more, make sure to click like and subscribe because we have plenty more where this came from.